Joining us now in a CNBC exclusive by phone is Leon Cooperman, Chairman and CEO of Omega Family Office. Leon, thanks so much for joining us. Good afternoon to you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, I think.
Want to make sure that we get on to market dynamics with your expertise on that. But forgive us for starting on some of this political back and forth. And I actually want to start on the news that Mike Bloomberg may be considering throwing his hat into the ring. You would support that, would you?
I would, but before I get there, if you wouldn't mind, indulge me for 1 second.
Sure.
I was in physical therapy this morning. I have a shoulder problem, and I understand the president was asked a question by a reporter about I suggested he not run again. That's not really what I said, and what I said on CNBC earlier this week was, if I was the president, and of course I'm not, if I wasn't prepared to change my dialogue and treatment of people, for example, Romney is not a jackass. He's a terrific guy. Tillerson is not dumb as a rock, etc. And John McCain is a true war hero. He has to be president for the entire country and not just his base. So if I was him, if I wasn't prepared to change, and I don't think he is prepared to change, for example, he already labeled Mike Bloomberg, little Mike. He's the same size as I am, height-wise. He's much thinner than me, which I envy. But I would tell the president, take a justifiable victory lap and not run again. The stock market is at a high. He can take credit for that. The economy is growing. 5 million jobs have been created in his presidency. We have record high employment, record low unemployment for minorities. He's taken on a tough trade battle with China. He's focused on discussion of illegal immigration. He reduced government red tape and promoted deregulation, and he's bolstered our national defense. So, he's done a good job for the time he's been in office, and he should get credit for that. But he has to be more presidential, and if he's not prepared to do that, then I say step aside. Okay, now about
Leon, you mentioned, well, actually, before we get on to Bloomberg, forgive me, Leon, please indulge me now.
Yeah, call me Lee. Call me Lee. All my friends call me Lee.
Sure.
You're my friend.
Oh, thank you, Lee. I certainly will. But you mentioned the comments the president made relating to you personally today. It was in response to a question from our Eamon Jabbers. Let's listen to that quickly now. Here's the president talking about you, Lee.
Good.
I don't know Leon Cooperman, but whoever Leon Cooperman is, I know of him. He can have his own view. But in the meantime, I'm making him rich, and I'm making a lot of other people rich. Everything about our economy is just about the best it's ever been.
Lee, did the president lie there? Does he know who you are?
Well, look, I'm not a major guy. I'm a little guy. He did meet with me. I did have dinner in the White House with him through the offices of a good mutual friend. But, he has a lot of things in his mind, so he might not remember. But we did have dinner in July of, I think, 2017 in the White House. There was about 10 people at dinner and the president. And it was an interesting dinner. But I don't think he lied. How many meetings does he have?
Sure.
You can find a lot of things to criticize him about, but not about that.
Fair enough, Lee. Let's move on. Bloomberg, you were going to say, why would you support him?
Well, I'm not a registered Democrat. You got to understand that. I'm an independent. I tend to vote the person and the issues. I think Mike Bloomberg is terrific, and I hope the Democratic Party agrees and gives him the nomination. Number one, he's a unifier. He's bright. He's immensely successful. He's been extremely generous with his resources. I read somewhere he's given away about $8 billion over the last number of years. Most importantly to me, I like people that are not pretentious. He's never forgot where he came from. If you talk to the Bloomberg employees, he's very kind to employees, and he understands how the economy works. I remember when politicians in New York City, and I'm not a New York resident. I have a home in New Jersey, but I live mainly in Florida. Okay, I remember when politicians in New York City were pushing for a billionaire's tax. He resisted and he explained, if you lose one billionaire, you have lost more revenue than you're going to get from everyone else. So he understands how the system works. Okay, and I appreciate that. I'm not particularly close with him, by the way, so my view is not based on some kind of deep friendship, but a cold-blooded assessment of his performance as a mayor of New York City and my understanding of his values, which I relate to. And we have to wait for his nomination, and we have to learn about his advocacy. If he changes his stripes, I could reserve the right to change my opinion. When the facts change, I change my opinion. At this moment in time, he has my unequivocal support, and I appreciate his willingness to put up with all the baloney he will have to put up with running for president. We all have certain skeletons in the closet. I hope he doesn't have any, because I think he's terrific, and I think he's probably running because he doesn't like what he's hearing from most of the candidates, and he feels he can make a difference. He's got a lot of energy, and I think he can make a difference. That's kind of where I come from.
Yeah, Lee, Morgan Brennan here. I know you mentioned that you see him as a unifier. The risk here, I think the worry here is that if Bloomberg runs, there's going to be a very difficult path to get through the Democratic primary, especially given the fact that so far the debates have really been centered so largely around economic inequality. And there's a fear there that maybe if he enters the race, it fractures the voting base. How do you see it?
My guess is, frankly, he's more likely to raise taxes as a rich individual than a poor individual would raise taxes. It's the way you raise tax. My problem with Elizabeth Warren, to be honest with you, is I have a criticism and I have a different view, okay? My criticism is she's acting like a politician, and I use that word politician in the most uncomplimentary fashion. You know, why is she attacking and Bernie Sanders attacking billionaires? You know, most billionaires I know work very hard for their money, okay? They didn't hit a lottery, they didn't inherit it, and they do good things with their money. So, you know, I think she's pandering to a base. There are obviously more poor people in the country than rich people, and it's easier to, you know, criticize wealthy people. Now, I don't know of any wealthy people, myself included, that's not prepared to pay more in taxes. It's just how you get there. You know, I think 14 countries have tried a wealth tax and 10 dropped it. It is totally disruptive. It's the wrong approach. Every year you're going to do some kind of evaluation of your net asset value, okay? And you're going to give 2% of your net assets away. How are people going to figure out their net worth? Take a Jeff Bezos, where probably the vast bulk, if not all his fortune, is in Amazon stock. You're going to force him to sell stock every year, 2% of his stock? Doesn't make any sense. We have a 37% tax rate at the federal level. Get rid of the carried interest. Get rid of the 1031 tax deferral. There's so many things we could do. Raise the tax rate. We don't need the IRS has been promising a simplification for the last 50 years or longer. I'm 76. I mean, ever since I started paying taxes, I recall it was going to get simpler. It's gotten more and more complicated. I don't even read my tax return anymore. My preparer prepares it and I sign it. You know, it doesn't make any sense. But that's a different issue. So I criticize her for her style. She can, you know, mock me, make fun of me. That's fine. I don't care. It don't make a difference to me. I know what I stand for. I know what I've done, et cetera. And I know I've lived the American dream, by the way, and I'm very focused on helping others live the American dream. My wife and I and my family, we send 500 kids to college in Newark, New Jersey. We pay their tuition. We've done other things. And I look around the city of New York, and what do I see? I see names of philanthropists on hospitals. I mean, my favorite is Ken Langone. You know, he's really helped change NYU. So I don't understand why she and Sanders find the need to criticize billionaires. And as far as Mike is concerned, it'll take a billionaire to probably raise taxes on other people. And I believe, by the way, in the progressive income tax structure, I believe rich people should pay more in taxes. And what the right numbers, I don't know. As I speak to you on the phone, I look at a quote here from a gentleman. Since this is an era when many people are concerned about fairness and social justice, what is your fare of what someone else has worked for? That's the question.
Right.
Do I ask people? I'll ask the three of you. I don't know what you make for a living. I know you work hard. I know you're very conscientious. How many months a year do you want to work for yourself, and how many months a year do you want to work for the government? I've said publicly I'm willing to work 6 months for the government, 6 months for myself. What do you want to work? How many months do you want to work for yourself? How many months do you want to work for the government?
I agree. Lee, I think that feels about right, 50% for people fortunate like yourself and like me. I guess one follow-up nuanced question, forgive me, and then we can go back to the bigger picture question. Do you support the elimination of the tax-free step-up in the basis or not? Is that an area that you do think there is perhaps some reasonable criticism?
No,
sorry, go on.
I have no problem with the inheritance tax. I guess you could say I'm, you know, biased because I took the Giving Pledge 9 years ago, and I told Warren Buffett that asking for half wasn't asking for enough. My intention was to give it all away. So I don't care about the inheritance tax. I plan to give away all my money. But I haven't focused on that aspect of it. I have focused on carried interest, which they eliminate. I focus on 1031, which gives these real estate billionaires the ability to roll over tax deferred forever, capital gains in their real estate. They should get rid of that. And I have no problem with raising the marginal tax rate. So I haven't focused on that one particular question. I've always felt long-term capital gains in part stem from, inflation. So taxing inflation is wrong. But let's come up with a number.
No, Leon, I totally get with you, and what I also wholeheartedly agree with is that in all these interviews and all these comments, your letter to Senator Warren, you outline many, many ways in which you are willing to pay more tax, and that's never the focus, of course, of the responses.
She mocked me before. I tend to be a sentimental guy. I broke down a little bit when we're talking about family and doing the right thing for the country, and she makes fun of me. But the reality is, it's.
I guess, Lee, the one point I just would, and this is a minor point relative to all of the wider, very, very legitimate points you made, but a wealth tax, of course, focuses on accumulated wealth to date, and you and I both know, as you highlighted with Jeff Bezos as an example, how impractical, almost impossible it would be to enforce that. I guess the step-up basis, someone would push back and say the step-up basis does then allow that accumulation of wealth never to be taxed.
It could be. I haven't focused on that. What I have focused on is the current law says 37%. Hello, did I lose you?
No, we're still here. We're still here.
What I'm focusing on is 37% of your income goes to federal government. Depending what state you live in, anywhere from, say, 8 to 14% goes to government. Then you got a FICA tax of 6.5%. Then you got a Medicare tax, I think 90 basis points without any limitation. Then you have the 3.6, I think, percent tax, the Obamacare tax on dividends and interest. Let us decide what the maximum tax rate should be on wealthy people. Okay, the wealthy people in this country pay the majority of the taxes, as it should be. Let's decide as a nation what should the maximum tax rate be on wealthy people, and that will define the revenue yield to the government, and the government should size its activity to that revenue yield. Okay, and that's kind of simple. We don't need a wealth tax. It's going to be totally disruptive. Just think about it. I assume the way it would work is every individual that's wealthy will have to do it at an attestation, sign an affidavit saying that what they have here is truthful and honest. How many people are going to go out and buy gold and stick it in a safe deposit box? It's a misallocation of resources. It's not the right thing. We don't want Jeff Bezos to sell Amazon stock every year if he doesn't have to sell stock or he doesn't think his stock should be sold. It's not a good thing for the economy. Just let's get the tax rate to where it should be to deal with their issues. We have to help poor people. I fully agree with that. We have plenty of wood to chop. We have plenty of things to do, but we could do it in a better way. And I get back to what I said. She is totally off base by this constant criticism of wealthy people. The wealthy people I know, David Rubenstein, Ken Langone, Bernie Marcus, Mike Bloomberg, Jeff Bezos, whatever, these are all philanthropists with a capital P. I'm a philanthropist with a small p. I'm flattered you even want to talk to me. I'm not overly relevant, but I have an opinion, and I'm willing to express that opinion. And I think she's just on the wrong track. And she's on the wrong track because she wants to appeal to the her base, and I will bet you $1 right now. I bet you $1 right now that the average person in the street has no idea what percent of the income the wealthy people pay in taxes. They think they get away with paying nothing. That's baloney. Just like I read, Google did a survey after Brexit, and they said the average British person did not understand what Brexit was all about, but they voted for Brexit. Okay, we have to improve economic literacy. We have to have justice and fairness in the tax system. Get rid of the loopholes. We don't need a wealth tax. It's a joke, and it's not going to work. And I haven't even said all along. The people I've read say it's unconstitutional. But I'm sure she'll find some cockamamie attorney to tell her that it's not.
Lee, in the midst of this conversation we're having, and sort of going back to something you mentioned before, I wonder if you think the concept of the American dream is in jeopardy right now. I mean, it's such a long-held fundamental societal value, but it seems to be very much in question and under siege. Is that how you see it?
It is, but, it exists in Asia. All the billionaires are emerging there. Hopefully we don't lose that in America. Look, the country is moving slightly to the left. I think it's basically because of income disparity. And my answer to income disparity is basically a fair tax structure. I agree with that. But it's more economic growth and education. Education is key. We've got to educate the youngsters so they can be competitive in the economy that we live in. Simple as that.
Lee, one quick final question. We know your view on what the stock market might do if Elizabeth Warren became president. As we stand here today, given that the election is a year away and that it could go either way, do you think the S&P 500 is a sell, particularly as it sits at a record high?
No, not really. I've been saying consistently, I think I was recently on with Scott Wapner, that the conditions that normally occur at a market top, recession, accelerating inflation, hostile Fed, unforeseen geopolitical event. The last one, of course, you can't forecast, but, we don't have signs of recession, inflation. If anything, they're trying to get it up. The Fed, in my opinion, is more than accommodative. I mean, they just create an environment where there's free money. And this is, aiding and abetting speculative activity, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. I would say, so I think the market is okay. Beyond this year, I would say I have a more conservative view, somewhat concerned. There's nobody talking about the debt buildup in the country, Republicans, Democrats, and we're creating debt at an alarming rate, and that's a factor. Second is the shift to the left. I will tell you, by the way, if Elizabeth thinks I'm prejudiced against her, I'm not. Bernie Sanders, if he was elected, the market would go down the same 25%, maybe more. Profit margins are historic high, and I'm very worried about the market structure. I've talked about this previously. When I came to Wall Street 51 years ago, the Volcker rule didn't exist, and brokers trade stock for 50 cents a share. Brokers, the commission is largely gone, and then the Volcker rule exists, so the brokers are no longer stabilizing forces. And secondly, when I came to Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange handled 80 or 90% of the volume. Today, it's 80% of the volume is off the board, so the specialist community don't act as stabilizers. And then finally, you got the elimination of the uptick rule, which gave rise to a lot of these quantitative trading systems that don't need an uptick to go short, and they buy strength, they sell weakness, so things get exaggerated in both directions. In the fourth quarter last year, you had the worst quarter since the Great Depression on virtually no economic justification. It was just absence of liquidity in the market, hedge fund liquidation, tax loss selling. But I think the market is okay at the present time. I don't understand why the Fed is so aggressive in cutting rates. Consumer confidence is high. Retail sales are strong. Employment is strong. Consumer net worth is at a record level. The economy is growing a trend. Corporate profits are decent. Stock repurchase activity would suggest that business sentiment is good, not bad. The rates are already very low. We're really tagging the savers. If you take interest rates, adjust for taxes, there's no return on savings, which pushes everybody out on the risk curve. That'll change one day, but not this year.